Welcome, everyone. This is Coffee with the Founder. Sometimes we have coffee here, sometimes we don't, most often we do not, but that is okay. I'm Beck Bamberger, and what we do this show for is to explore, invite, discuss what it is like to be a venture backed founder. You got to be crazy to rather do it. And we explore the reasons why these wonderful people do it. And I get it because a lot of them have founderitis, so they do it again, even after they've done one. With us today, coming from San Francisco, right, Simon? In San
Correct. San
Francisco right
Francisco.
now? Perfect. In the motherland. Simon Wijckmans, he's the founder and CEO of Seaside. This is a security company working specifically in cybersecurity with tools to monitor, optimize, secure, browser side scripts, which we all know cyber attacks are on the rise. So, Simon, welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I find it a lot of fun to have these types of podcast
Aren't
stuff
they
happening.
fun?
They are a lot of fun, and the BAM team has been great too. I've been working with you guys through RVCs quite a bit, and it's been
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. So you were at Cloudflare, which is a huge company, as we know. And then you were, first as a solutions engineer, and then you did product. You then followed your time with another company, Vercel. And then you decided, okay, I'm going to start Seaside, right?
Correct.
The
Yeah.
to really address widespread and of course growing its compounding, browser supply chain security issues, that cybersecurity specific. So why Seaside? Tell us a little bit more.
Well, so career, Microsoft Cloudflare Vercel, a small startup named Hydra to kind of get ready for the startup thing, and then end up starting Seaside. And I mean, the real driving force behind it was that I started to realize that a lot of these venture-backed cybersecurity companies, they have a core reason to exist, which in the case of Cloudflare is protecting against DDoS attacks, the
Yep.
firewall, et cetera, et cetera. And they do a really great job at that. But as is the case with all these security companies, eventually you start building more and more products. They get larger total addressable markets. And as they get larger and larger and start firing away at more and more of these things, the quality of their product drops. And that's just a very
Yeah.
curve. Not a single one of these companies manages to maintain a quality for eternity, right? They do sometimes for longer than others, but yeah. And then I realized, look, client-side security, at the time it was dubbed mage card attacks, right? Which was directly correlated to Magento being the main target. That was a space that was fully owned by side products of large security companies. And honestly, there is no nice way to put it. None of their solutions worked. It was all cash grab, side product, minimum viable product, small teams, usually without the proper resources to do it well. And so, I did my thing at Cloudflare, did a bunch of these things, and I started to realize that this is just how this works. It's sad, but
Yeah.
it makes sense why it is this way. And so then I left. I joined Vercel, which was a lot earlier stage. It's also one of the main reasons why you'd like working at the earlier stage companies, because it's just more pure, the real mission.
Yeah.
And yeah, I inherited some products there. I started to lead some of their product security efforts, which I mean was not the biggest success, I would say, because a lot of developers don't necessarily care about security at the level that they should have. And then I was able to get at least some stuff started, right? And then by the time that I left other people to get over, and I mean, at this point, they do have some security products, many of which I started and I scoped in the beginning. So then started Seaside. Look, I went back to client-side security. I realized that was a space that didn't really have a vendor that did a good job. Of course, bad actors realized that, well, areas are being protected and which ones aren't. And of course, bad actors realize that nobody's properly monitoring the client side. So if you manage to get your way into dependency, and you can then just inject a client-side fetch and therefore fly under the radar and do the bad things in the browser, of course you do it. It's so much easier. And especially because this is an attack vector where you can aim very carefully. You can target 1% of users in France after office hours, for example. And the result is that nobody's going to realize that this has happened. Security teams are never going to see that. And so, yeah, I just went the extra mile to build a product architecture that was able to capture even those very highly targeted style attacks. And that is ultimately what Seaside became.
Oh, fun. Are you having fun?
I am having fun. I mean, we spot a lot of attacks, right? So that's one of the nice things about security. When you do a good job, you stop a lot of bad things from happening. And therefore, I get to go to bed at night knowing that I did good for the world. I made the internet safer. People's grandma can use the internet more safely. And that is, I think, a pretty noble thing about the security space. Yeah.
Because you're fighting the bad guys. Okay, speaking of, I asked you earlier, you've got a character there in the background.
Yeah, Kim. He keeps me motivated.
Yeah?
Hello, Kim. And there's another nice side effect to them. If I interview a candidate that is one of those North Korean infiltrants, which I had a lot of press attention for, that guy stops the call immediately. So saves a lot of time. I don't have to do anything special for it.
Fascinating. So wait a second. So you'll be on with, let's say, someone you're interviewing and they see that, they're like, yeah, no, I don't want to talk.
Well, it's those North Korean like bad actors are trying to infiltrate companies applying for jobs, right? And so they see that guy. It's the end of the conversation usually at that point because they know I've got them. They know it's not gonna work.
Oh, fascinating. Fascinating. I've never seen someone with a poster of somebody as a deterrent before. So
I think it's a funny thing. I mean, there was something I did with a journalist where we interviewed one of these candidates, and Kim Jong-un casually appeared into my background, and that was the end of the conversation. I thought it was a particularly funny one. So since then, I've got a carbon cut out of Kim Jong-un in my office.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. All right. So you mentioned you were having fun. Tell me what is fun, because I think that's so often not the case in running a venture-backed company. It is not fun. It is not fun at all. There's more days of hell. So tell us more. How do you find the fun?
I mean, if you start a company, you're not going to be doing a 9 to 5. That is the thing. You are not going to be working a casual job where there's 15 other people that can catch the work if you're not doing it. That's normal. You know that, when you start a company. I'm having fun because I've got a great team. I was able to hire great people. I'm able to help customers. Customers give me excellent feedback. That feedback is being made into better products. The flywheel works. Things are going, right? So, and that's the stuff that makes me very happy. We are ultimately making the web safer. So that's really my motivation. I mean, what is having fun? I mean, the thing is, like, as you start a company like this, you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. You're going to have to do things you like, you're going to have to do things you don't like. But ultimately, you're all contributing to a better job. And the fact is that when you start working at a larger company, you have to deal with external friction a lot. I don't have that much external friction. I get to run my company and everything that's part of that. And that, of course, I think is a lot more fun than having to deal with internal friction of big companies. And I mean, to that point, it's quite funny when you start talking to people, you want to hire them for like a job at a startup. Some people's instinctive response is, isn't it more risky? And then honestly, my answer to that is no. So
why is your answer no? Now we're cooking with something here. Tell me.
I'll give you 2 real world examples.
Yes,
you can work at Google, Microsoft, or Amazon for 5 years, working your ass off, pooling all the work, doing all the heavy lifting for your team.
Yes.
And then there's a reorg at the end of the financial year, and there's a red dot next to your name in a spreadsheet, and you're out of there. You could have done everything for that team, and you would have had the biggest impact. It wouldn't have mattered, right? So that is the reality of working at a larger firm, and that is just something you have to sign up to. And the thing is, you couldn't have done anything about it. If you're a startup employee number 5, your impact at the company is ultimately able to make a difference to the success of the company. If the company succeeds, the upside is much larger. Okay, maybe the salary would be a little bit lower than you would have made at Amazon, but you got equity that's actually meaningful. Then, if the company doesn't work out, guess what? If that is a good company and did your diligence well, the VCs that back that company have other companies that would benefit from your skills. You can very easily pivot to one of these other companies. So once you're in that startup ecosystem and you're making impact, you don't have a hard time surviving, getting to another thing that's going to be more successful. So it's kind of a different perspective.
I do, and it is a different perspective, avant-garde perhaps, because you're in the machine of one of these big, huge companies. You're not getting the access to 40 other portfolio companies that are growing and hiring and doing their funding rounds, and what a time to be in it. So interesting twist on that.
It's one of those things that people tend to forget. Like, look,
they do, or they don't think about it,
compounding effects of being a good person in a good company with access to great people that can give you access to other people, that is ultimately what's going to make for a good career and for interesting work.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Your boss at Google probably is not even in contact with the investors either, right? So know your skip level.
Yeah.
No, there you go.
Yep. Good approach on that, Simon. Join a startup. It's more job security than you probably even think.
You get better network out of it.
You get a much better network. I think, though, you need to be proactive in that, though. You can't be an employee just being like, I don't know who our investors are. I never talk to them. There is something to be said about how do you insert yourself into it. Let me ask you that. As someone who joins the team and it's like employee number 10, they go, oh, look, we have 5 all-star VCs that have backed our company. Awesome. What's your advice to them on how they insert themselves into the VC relationships? Because some founders are like, I don't want you talking to anybody because I'm dealing with that.
Look, I mean, if you got to be scared of something within your company, your VC should know you're doing things wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There are, of course, like certain small shit shows that you think the VC would probably look at differently. But look, all of my investors are either ex-founders or people that have operated in some sense. They know that things are going to be difficult, but you have to look at the big picture, and that's what they do. I mean, for an individual contributor, I think it comes down to the culture of the startup as well. I think a lot of startups would just literally say, look, they gave us money and that's it, right?
Yeah.
That is ultimately how a lot of VCs operate. I tend to like more people that are high value add. The money is a given, but the added value I get from them as individuals with their network and their skill set and their feedback is ultimately what I want. And then, of course, from there, I also give... Look, I mean, if people ask for coaching, that's usually the easiest way to get access to specific angels. When I assembled our pre-seed cap table and our seed cap table, I thought of the things that I knew and the things I didn't know, and the people that I wanted to bring on board to help me coach in those regards. If you came to me and you said, look, I mean, I feel like I want to get my career to the next level, and these are the skill sets I want to learn, the first thing I would do is look into our list of angels and see who there is able to give some advice. And so that's one of the easy ways to do it. Talk about your long-term career plan.
Like it. Okay. Is there anything keeping you up, Simon? You said you were like conquering the world with keeping the bad actors out, so it's letting you sleep well. But from maybe a running an organization standpoint, what would you say?
I mean, so everything that we do ultimately has an impact on the runtime of the application of the customer, right? And so, of course, us getting attacked or going down, that is, of course, one of the things that would always concern me. But that's a productive concern. So the way that I take that is we just do as much as we can to prevent it from ever happening. We take all the extreme steps for that. And so it is definitely something that is always top of mind for me, and I think for everybody within the company. But at the same time, it is a productive energy. So we do take that as an action item and then make that into preventative stuff. So that is one. I mean, of course, there are always the world is always changing, right? And so
big time.
I'm more aware. I'm more worried about missing interesting opportunities than I am worried about things going wrong in that sense. Like there is such an amazing time to build a company right now. You really gotta be on top of it.
Yeah. Do you think it's the best time, by the way, or what's your take?
Every day is the best day to do it. Like, look, I mean, if you look at the big picture, everything goes up to the right, with the exception of things that were not sustainable, right? And so it's always a good day to be part of something new.
I like that perspective. Speaking of, what have you recently changed your mind on, if anything?
Interesting. One of the key things when I started my company was that I thought, look, what we're doing also has a compliance angle, and compliance is unavoidable, so you're going to have a budget for it, and you have to do it. There's really not much negotiation, so surely that would help us being able to move things quicker. The reality is that I had to come to the realization that compliance in a lot of companies is totally separated from security effort because a lot of compliance frameworks misscope what needs to be done to be secure, which is true. I thought compliance at least would have budget to do things well. Most of the time, they are pushed to just get the cheapest possible thing. That is something that I've learned. Frustrating, but if you think about the fact that companies are often structured to see compliance as one thing, but security as something else, you understand why that's the case.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily see the compliance requirement as something that actually, levels of the security necessarily. Sometimes they're hand in hand, but often they're not.
Yeah.
So that was something that I've learned. It's interesting. Definitely change of perspective on that. Wish I knew that earlier.
Okay. Has that changed then your product roadmap or your offering, anything of that sort, or maybe even your pricing?
Not really. Look, I mean, I just try to focus on the people that do see us as a security vendor more than a compliance requirement. We've always tried to put ourselves in a position of, look, we are a security company, but we actually help you meet that requirement as well. It does end up sometimes that we speak to a prospect and they're really just looking to tick the box the cheapest possible way. But the fact of the matter is that we will just tell them, look, I mean, here's the cheapest possible way, right?
Yeah.
And this is what it's going to get you. You're not actually going to achieve any real security here. So look, if you just want to have a checkbox, by all means, go talk to a competitor of ours. It's going to be the cheapest in the market. They probably would tick a box. I don't think that is the right thing to do. It's sad because I would say about 40% of the time, they would still go with the cheapest possible thing because that's just how the organization is structured to do things. About 60% of the time, they were able to then convince them and show them that, look, This is the real way to do it.
60%.
60%, just above a half, really.
This is okay, but hey, that's a win. Yeah.
Yeah.
Simon, you've had a lot of great PR success, I have to say. And as a cybersecurity company, that's even harder because a lot of times you cannot be mentioning, you cannot be touting, who your partners are and so forth. What have you attributed that to? Obviously, we know you're using an agency, so and not us, by the way, but like they're clearly working, they're cranking. But what do you attribute that to? Because for cybersecurity companies, it's often quite challenging to do such.
Do interesting stuff. When we talk about attacks, we find these attacks are not targeting usually one specific company. We go up the chain and figure out where else the attack is running, and then we can talk about how many websites are impacted there. So that is something about like what we do that's rather unique. In regards to like the rest of our press attention, do interesting stuff. The Wired article about that guy and how they're trying to plant people in companies, that was because I had an opportunity to do that. Most people, if you're in a startup, you had these North Korean job applicants. Most people didn't spend another second on it, right? For us, it was close enough to our business that we went ahead and built a product to detect these applications. And so, that's one of those things. Look, I think at the end of the day, if you start understanding how journalists qualify the thing that they want to write about or not, once you understand that, you can pretty much do your own PR. You just have to understand how to get it out there and distribute it.
You are PR positive, basically, Simon, which I think is lovely to see because obviously I'm biased, but so many other founders are just like, I just don't want to, or they're reluctant to do it. And we're big proponents, of course, of like, hey, you got to dominate your share of voice or you will not become relevant. And by the way, you won't be relevant on the chats and everything else for all the chat optimization. But there's that. Yeah. Or the answer optimization. Yes. Well, good to hear, Simon. Well, wrapping this up here, if we may today, how do you now think of success? You're not out, you're not exited. You've raised a couple $1 million. I'm sure there's more coming. Tell me.
Look, it's fundamentally all about. Our mission is detecting attacks, right? So if you're asking me what does success look like for me, it is detecting more and more interesting, fancy attacks, getting more and more people to be aware of the security risk of these client-side scripts and helping them counter it. That is what ultimately success looks like for me at this phase. Us as a company, we are spending a lot of time educating people about the problem of client-side security. That is, of course, always harder than going after an existing market. So something that we've announced rather recently was our partnership with Chargeback 911. Chargeback 911 is an amazing leader in the space. So what they do is they basically help people fight chargeback fraud. So when people claim that it wasn't them that made a purchase, we spoke to them. They came to us initially. We met them over a year ago. We ended up building a product together that was helpful to detecting whether a certain credit card was used on the same device on that particular merchant's website before. The result is that we're able to counter some of these chargeback claims before they even go through the formal process through a thing called Verify by Visa. Thing is that these are the sort of things that we've been talking to customers about. They understand the level of data and access that we have about client-side behaviors, and customers regularly come to us asking us for other uses of that. Look, can we use this thing to do X, Y, and Z? And the answer is often yes, and then we just have to scope it. And so that's a great thing about what we do. People have questions for us.
Well, that's also being a nimble startup that can be like, oh, you need that? Oh, we could build that specific to you and what you exactly asked. In a way, what a concierge level service.
Exactly. And people do love that, right? And that's one of the many reasons why people would buy from a startup over from a large company.
Exactly. The nimbleness, the speed, the customization. Exactly. Again, as you said, Simon, work at a startup, more secure than otherwise.
Yep, exactly.
Dang. Simon, thank you for being on today. You are the founder, CEO of Seaside. Simon Wijckmans, he's up in San Francisco. Come visit him, or if you need a customized scope on client-side security, this is your guy. Here he is.
Awesome.
What's your favorite coffee shop? By the way, Simon, where can people find you in San Francisco, coffee shop-wise, if you got one?
I don't drink coffee.
Oh, you
I'm
don't?
boring like that.
Okay.
No.
What do you drink then, if you got anything?
Healthy stuff.
What, healthy stuff? Okay, great.
I do like juice, though. The juice has some pretty good stuff.
Okay. Green juice is not like apple juice, I'm assuming. Not.
Some stuff like that as well that I like.
There you go. Juices. Great. Simon, thank you so much. Great having you on.
Thank you. Talk to you later.